Imagine for a moment that you are standing in front of your partner, wishing that every encounter could be a moment of deep connection, but you feel that something has been lost over the years. Maybe the energy is no longer the same, or the reactions of your body surprise you, and a sense of insecurity begins to grow silently. This moment, which once felt natural and fluid, can now create doubt, fear of failure, or a quiet anxiety that is never shared. It is normal to feel that performance is no longer automatic, that every gesture requires conscious attention, and that shared pleasure becomes more delicate and precious. Many older men face physical and psychological changes that affect their sexual life in a significant way. The strength, stamina, and speed that once felt automatic now require more attention and care, and the pressure to perform can create a silent anxiety that is often not communicated to the partner. These changes are natural and part of aging, but they are often lived with guilt or frustration, as if one were failing in some way. Throughout more than 25 years of experience in the United States, I have seen men who feel powerless not because they have serious medical problems, but because they continue applying sexual behavior patterns they learned decades ago, without adapting them to the body they have today. Most of them focus only on penetration, believing that it is the center of sexual satisfaction, ignoring that true connection requires attention to the female body, to the partner's rhythm, and to their own physical response. This silent mistake creates frustration, distance, and anxiety, and many times men do not understand that the key is not speed, strength, or duration, but the understanding of anatomy and the awareness of how their bodies can synchronize to generate mutual pleasure. These changes affect not only physical performance, but also confidence, self-esteem, and emotional connection with the partner, turning intimacy into a source of stress instead of enjoyment. This is why, before thinking about techniques or positions, it is essential to reflect on how age, experience, and communication can completely transform the sexual relationship, and how adapting intelligently to these changes can turn intimacy into a richer, more conscious, and more satisfying experience for both partners. One of the most frequent problems I encounter is what sexologists call the orgasm gap, which is the significant difference between how often men reach climax and how often their female partners do. The numbers are clear. While almost all men say they reach orgasm during penetration, only about 20% of women report experiencing the same. This creates not only physical frustration, but also emotional tension, producing feelings of guilt, insecurity, and in some cases, distancing from intimacy. I have listened to couples where he believes he is doing everything correctly, following the pattern he learned decades ago, and she feels unsatisfied, often staying silent so she does not hurt him. In some situations, both younger and older women have told me that faking orgasm has become a routine that causes guilt and anxiety, while their partners have no idea that something is not working. This problem is not related to the complexity of women, but to a lack of understanding of their anatomy and the way pleasure is built during intimacy. To illustrate this, I can imagine a 50-year-old man remembering his youthful experiences, when everything seemed easier and faster, and feeling frustrated when he tries to repeat those patterns without success. This mismatch creates a cycle of stress and frustrated expectations that affects the relationship, reduces mutual confidence, and can even lead to avoiding intimate contact. Before continuing, I would love to know something so I can connect with our community. From which city or country are you watching us? Write it in the comments. I enjoy getting to know people who care about their well-being, and this helps me create content that is more useful and relevant for you and your region. Let us get straight to the point. Understanding that penetration alone does not guarantee female pleasure, and that there are proven techniques to improve satisfaction for both, is essential to close this gap and transform sexual life into an experience of connection, enjoyment, and deep communication. To understand how to improve intimacy and close the orgasm gap, we must first know the female body in detail, especially the clitoris, which is the central point of pleasure. Although many people think the clitoris is only the small visible part, it is actually a complex organ that extends internally, surrounding the urethra and the vagina, forming a structure that resembles an arch that can be stimulated through different positions and movements. It contains more than 8,000 nerve endings, which is double the amount in the penis, and this explains why direct and correct contact is so crucial for generating intense pleasure. The lack of sexual education leads many men to ignore these internal structures, relying exclusively on traditional penetration, which causes frustration in the partner. I have seen cases of women in their 40s, 50s, or even 60s who have spent years faking orgasms, believing it is easier to avoid conflict than to communicate their needs. For example, one woman told me how, after marrying young, she learned that everything had to be quick and superficial, and for decades she repeated a pattern of sex based only on penetration, while her pleasure remained a matter of luck. Poor education and cultural myths have led entire generations to understand sex as a monologue instead of a dialogue, and this can generate feelings of frustration, emotional disconnection, and quiet distrust. Recognizing the anatomy of the clitoris and learning to interact with it consciously allows sexual experience to become a game of exploration, rhythm, and connection, where stimulation is not an accident, but the result of movement, alignment, and mutual attention. Understanding this also helps older men, who may face changes in stamina, energy, or erection time, reconnect with their partner through touch, attention, and patience, turning each encounter into a shared learning experience that strengthens both physical and emotional intimacy. The caudal alignment technique, known as CAT, did not appear by accident or through improvised experiments. It has a scientific foundation that brings together knowledge of anatomy, neurophysiology, and research on sexual behavior. Its origin goes back to studies on the sexual response of men and women carried out in the mid-20th century, when researchers began to analyze how physical contact and synchronized movement influenced mutual pleasure. Clinical studies in the United States and Europe showed that direct clitoral stimulation through controlled friction aligned with the male pelvis produced orgasms that were more frequent and more intense, while penetration without adequate contact rarely guaranteed female satisfaction. CAT was adapted and refined over time, incorporating observations from real couples who were looking to improve their intimacy. In clinical practice, I have observed that older men who adopt this technique manage to reconnect with their partners in a deeper way, even when they face problems such as reduced erection or physical fatigue, because CAT allows them to focus on the quality of the contact and not only on penetration or duration. One example that illustrates this is a couple who, after years of superficial encounters and accumulated frustration, began applying the principles of CAT and discovered that they could maintain long, intimate moments without performance anxiety. Focusing on rocking, the right amount of pressure, and constant attention to the woman's signals. The science behind CAT also explains why this method works. The alignment of the pelvis allows for more efficient contact between the male pubic bone and the clitoris, increasing the stimulation of internal nerves and enhancing the release of dopamine and oxytocin in both partners, which strengthens the feeling of emotional connection and shared pleasure. This approach not only benefits the woman, but also transforms the man's experience, since he stops depending on strength or speed to provide pleasure and begins to value synchronization and attention to every detail of his partner's body. For these reasons, CAT has become an essential tool for older men who want to maintain an active, satisfying, and emotionally enriching sexual life, turning intimacy into a space of learning and mutual understanding. Applying CAT is not only about precise movements and physical coordination, but about building a deep emotional connection that transforms the sexual experience into a continuous dialogue between two people. Intimacy is not limited to genital stimulation. It extends to closeness, eye contact, the touch of the skin, and the shared rhythm of breath and heartbeat. When a couple manages to synchronize, every gesture, every movement, and every adjustment becomes a form of silent yet powerful communication. For example, a couple who had fallen into routine discovered that by incorporating CAT, they not only improved physical satisfaction, but also began talking more freely with each other about their desires and needs, creating an emotional bond that had disappeared over the years. The technique requires both partners to be present, attentive to each other's reactions, and willing to adjust and listen with the body, not only with words. This conscious presence creates trust, increases emotional intimacy, and reduces performance anxiety, which is especially common in older men who fear not satisfying their partners. Emotional connection allows intimate moments to become something more than the simple search for orgasm. They become a space where complicity, tenderness, and mutual admiration are strengthened. When the man perceives his partner's response, he adjusts his movements with empathy, and when the woman feels heard and understood, her pleasure increases exponentially. By combining technique and presence, Kat transforms each encounter into a shared experience where both take an active role in creating pleasure and closeness, making intimacy an expression of affection and mutual respect, rather than a mechanical act. This emotional dimension is what defines a satisfying and lasting sexual relationship, demonstrating that true sexual mastery does not lie only in technique, but in the ability to be fully present and connected during each encounter. Before applying CAD, it is essential that both the mind and the body are prepared so the experience can be satisfying and pleasurable. Male sexual health does not depend solely on technique, but also on physical factors such as blood circulation, stamina, and flexibility, along with emotional balance that allows enjoyment without anxiety. Older men in particular may experience hormonal changes, reduced libido, or erection difficulties that require attention and care. Staying active with regular cardiovascular exercise helps improve circulation, strengthens the heart, and contributes to sexual responsiveness, while activities like yoga or stretching increase flexibility and reduce muscle tension, making positions and movements during intimacy easier. Stress control is also vital. Accumulated stress can affect libido and concentration, making synchronization with the partner more difficult. Mental preparation includes learning to be present, focusing on contact, and not obsessing over orgasm as the goal, but on the shared experience. Visualizing the technique, breathing consciously, and relaxing before intimacy help reduce anxiety and enhance emotional connection. The combination of physical and mental care ensures that CAT is practiced with energy, patience, and sensitivity, allowing each movement to flow naturally and strengthening the silent communication between bodies. Understanding that pleasure is a process involving the whole body and not only the genital area is essential for men who want to maintain full intimacy and enjoy deeper, more conscious, and more gratifying encounters, even as the years go by. The coital alignment technique, known as CAT, can be broken down into 4 fundamental steps that require attention, patience, and practice to maximize satisfaction for both partners. The first step is preparation and initial placement. This is where both bodies must find comfort and connection. It is essential to make sure movements are gentle, that legs and hips are aligned, and that the contact is full but never painful. For older men, paying attention to posture is vital to avoid strain in the back or joints, and cushions or pillows can be used to adjust height and improve alignment. The second step, perfect alignment, requires a conscious focus on the placement of the bodies. The goal is not simply penetration, but establishing firm and steady contact between the pubic bone and the clitoris. This constant contact allows stimulation to be distributed evenly, creating a sensation of closeness and synchronization between both partners. It is important for men to move slightly upward or downward until the friction feels optimal, adjusting the pressure without forcing it and adapting to the partner's response. The third step, movement, transforms the technique into a rhythmic and coordinated dance. It is not about thrusting in and out, but about gently rocking the hips as if both pelvises were moving as one. This rhythmic movement creates continuous and consistent stimulation, with each motion being felt and responded to by the partner. Maintaining synchronization requires attention and silent communication, observing how the partner's body responds to each movement and adjusting speed or intensity as needed. Patience and concentration are essential here, especially for men who might feel anxiety about erection or performance. The fourth step consists of maintaining rhythm and emotional connection while continuously adjusting the technique. CAT is not a rigid method, but flexible. Small variations in tilt, hip angle, and pressure can be tried, always prioritizing shared pleasure. Verbal or nonverbal communication helps adjust movements and avoid discomfort, allowing the experience to be deep, intense, and gratifying. The key is to remember that orgasm is not the goal, but the joint enjoyment of touch and closeness, and that each session offers opportunities for learning and mutual discovery. In practicing CAT, even after understanding the technique, common mistakes can interfere with the couple's experience and connection. One of the most frequent is activating autopilot, unconsciously returning to the classic thrusting movement that many men have used for years. This can break synchronization and reduce stimulation, creating frustration for both. To correct this, it is essential to take conscious pauses, reevaluate bodily contact, and resume rhythmic rocking with full attention. This process requires patience and constant practice, especially for those who have been accustomed to a mechanical pattern for years. Another common mistake is uncomfortable silence during intimacy. Often, the female partner does not express her sensations in order not to hurt her partner's ego, which can lead to misunderstandings and demotivation. CAT works fully only when there is constant and respectful feedback. Simple phrases like higher, a little slower, or just like that become tools of connection and communication, allowing both partners to adjust the technique immediately and harmoniously. Patience and empathy are essential, as well as a sense of humor to face minor misalignments without tension. Another frequent mistake is abandoning the technique too early out of impatience or frustration. Many men feel that if they do not achieve immediate results, something is wrong, when in reality coordination takes time. It is important to understand that each attempt strengthens the connection, helps learn the rhythms of the partner's body, and reinforces mutual trust. Laughing at mistakes and approaching them as learning creates a relaxed environment where both can enjoy without pressure. Consistency and practice are key to turning initial errors into significant progress that increases long-term satisfaction. Finally, lack of attention to physical and emotional signals can be a major obstacle. CAT requires both partners to be present and aware of every gesture, breath, and movement. Ignoring these signals can lead to desynchronization or discomfort. To avoid this, it is useful to constantly observe and feel the partner's response, adjusting rhythm, pressure, and posture as needed. This level of attention transforms the technique into a true dialogue between body and mind, turning the sexual experience into a space of intimacy and deep trust. As men age, it is common for physical changes to affect sexual function, such as decreased blood flow, reduced sensitivity, and longer recovery time between encounters. However, CAT can be perfectly adapted to these needs, enhancing intimacy and connection without relying solely on strength or speed. A key tip is to keep circulation active through gentle cardiovascular exercises such as walking, swimming, or cycling, combined with light strength routines that strengthen the pelvic area and muscles involved in stability during intimacy. This not only improves physical stamina, but also increases body awareness, which is essential for harmonious rocking during the technique. In addition, conscious breathing and stress control play a fundamental role. Tension and anxiety can reduce sensitivity and the ability to synchronize with the partner, while a relaxed mind promotes mindfulness and the ability to perceive the signals of the female body. Practicing meditation, deep breathing, or relaxation techniques before intimacy can make a difference, transforming the experience into something more pleasurable and lasting. Another important recommendation is the use of specific pelvic exercises, such as Kegel exercises. These strengthen the pelvic floor muscles, improve circulation, and increase firmness and control during CAT movements. The impact of these small habits on sexual performance is often underestimated, but consistent practice allows greater mastery of rhythm and pressure without relying on brute strength. Finally, the technique is complemented by attention to emotional well-being and self-esteem. Confidence and the ability to enjoy without external pressure enhance satisfaction for both the man and the partner. A man who feels secure, present, and capable of adapting to his partner's needs creates an environment of deep intimacy and shared pleasure. Kat, combined with these strategies, turns mature sexuality into a space of conscious exploration, where the experience is fully enjoyed and becomes a means of intimate and emotional connection that strengthens the relationship on all levels. Sexuality in maturity should not be seen as a simple physical act, but as a complex experience involving body, mind, and emotions. Over the years, many men have learned to focus on penetration and achieving orgasm as the main goal, neglecting the richness of touch and communication with their partner. Kat breaks this notion by transforming each encounter into a constant dialogue between bodies, where mindfulness and synchronization allow both partners to enjoy without rush or external pressure. Every gesture, every touch, and every movement becomes an act of mutual care, reinforcing intimacy and trust. The true value of this technique lies in the ability to generate emotional closeness. When the couple moves as a unit, face to face, they can perceive not only physical movements, but also breathing, heart rhythm, and subtle signals showing pleasure or the need for adjustment. This encourages nonverbal communication that often surpasses any conversation, strengthening emotional connection and deepening the relationship. Mature intimacy then becomes an art, where patience, empathy, and generosity are the true protagonists. Normalizing dialogue about sexual health is another essential aspect. Speaking openly about desires, difficulties, and experiences without shame or judgment allows the couple to explore new ways of pleasure and strengthen the relationship. Kat offers a safe and structured framework where these conversations are naturally integrated into the sexual act, fostering an environment of trust and respect. Additionally, conscious practice and attention to one's own and the partner's well-being elevate the experience beyond physical pleasure, turning it into a moment of full connection, mutual discovery, and shared emotional satisfaction. Ultimately, mature sexuality can be deeper, more conscious, and more enriching than at any previous stage of life. The combination of knowledge, technique, emotional attention, and self-care turns each encounter into an opportunity to strengthen the bond, enjoy the present moment, and cultivate a solid emotional connection. Adopting these practices not only improves sexual life, but also contributes to overall well-being, reminding us that pleasure and intimacy are rights at every age. The final invitation is not to fear exploration, learning, and dialogue, to recognize sexuality as a vital component of a full life, and to value connection with one's partner as the greatest gift that can be given and received in intimacy.